you have to keep innovating. You can't miss a generation. You can't fall asleep. You have to execute. You have to remain agile. I think the geeks looked at the 20th century model of a corporation and they said that's not going to work for our environment. So they went out and did that upgrade. Now the question is, what are the biggest barriers faced by the geeks these days? I think we were just talking about maybe the biggest barrier. The leaders of companies can become too fond of their own opinions. They can become convinced they've got a crystal ball and that they know the path forward. They can stop listening to their team and their colleagues and their boards, and that is a sure way to go off track sooner or later.
Interesting, this idea of the cult of personality and kind of...
And the most fundamental human bias is overconfidence. And after you've had this glittering track record of success, you could be forgiven for being quite confident that you've got the crystal ball for the future of tech in the business world. You don't. You've got to stay humble. You've got to keep questioning yourself and having people question you.
Yeah, it's an easy pitfall. I'm curious, Peter, because you have worked in both the private and the public sector, do you think that the geek way is also applicable in Washington?
Sure, although it varies across different parts of Washington. But the two organizations that I ran, the Congressional Budget Office and the Office of Management and Budget, very much are, of this way, and kind of, I mean, I still remember actually coming back to the word geek that President Obama would, tease us for being that way, and at some point we brought out propeller heads.
Did you?
Yeah, just to mock ourselves at a meeting. We all pulled them out. So I think it depends a little bit on what part of Washington you're in, but the Congressional Budget Office is a good example, which by the way is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, is very much embodies empirical evidence and all of the principles that Andy talks about in the book.
What do you think, Andy? And I'm also curious your thoughts on DOGE in particular. You talk about Elon Musk in the book and how his geek approach created SpaceX and it created Tesla, and this idea of failing and then kind of fixing it with live feedback from customers and so forth. It feels like a lot of what he's doing with DOGE is similar to that. But I'm curious if you think it works, within government, or if this is something that should be reserved just for the for-profit.
I saw more similarities between DOGE and what the culture was like at Tesla and SpaceX. It feels to me like DOGE represents a wrong turn on the road to geekdom, where they're highlighting how many people they fired and how many contracts they canceled as ways to communicate how well things are going. I don't think we need to tell the former head of the OMB that you cannot fire your way into meaningfully reducing the federal deficit. That's just not going to get you there. So this feels kind of performative and really kind of artificial to me. And instead of celebrating, making USAID go away or firing tons of federal employees, why not try to make government work better for its people? In the same way that Uber works better than, forgive me, taxi cabs in New York for people. Why not apply that ridiculous maverick energy toward making government work better for people? There are so many opportunities to do that. And so the scorecard that they're keeping of layoffs and things canceled, it's not pointing, I don't think it's headed in the right direction.
So I think Andy brings up an important point here, which is if you want to succeed, you have to make sure you're measuring the most important thing and not fall prey to, the equivalent of the body counts from Vietnam, where you were measuring things, but that wasn't actually the thing you want to be measuring. So you have to start with the question of what are we trying to accomplish? And from that perspective, the private sector is a bit easier than the public sector because the objective is pretty clear. And in the public sector, it's often multidimensional, and you don't have one output that you're goal-seeking.
So the public sector, the stakeholder being the American people, whereas in the private sector, you have multiple stakeholders that you have to appeal to.
Yeah, but usually the objective of a corporation, obviously you have to take there are questions about long-term versus short-term, but the underlying goal of a company is to be profitable and to maximize shareholder value. And then how you do that, incorporating all the various different stakeholders, is important. In the government, it's often a much more diffuse set of objectives. You can define, improve the welfare of the American public overall, but that's a pretty vague,
Amorphous
amorphous
goal.
thing. And in practice, the question becomes, what are you solving for? And that's often more complicated. So it's not always so easy to just take business principles and apply them to government. It's often more challenging than that.
The other gigantic difference, obviously, is that in the private sector, Peter knows, you've got competition all the time. In government, for a lot of the services that they provide, there's not real competition. When I come back into the country, I don't have a choice about who's going to readmit me and scan my passport. So that honing force of competition is gone in a lot of places in government, which makes competent management and leadership all the more important.